say that the cost of living is on the rise, and it is getting more and more difficult for people to be able to match their budget with the actual cost of just general everyday living. And that's before we even get to start to treat ourselves, go out and have fun. It's now literally a case of people working extra hard just to be able to meet their basic daily needs like rent, groceries and heating. And with this in mind, having been there myself and lived on that breadline where I'm wondering how I'm going to make ends meet every single day of the week, I thought I would share my most frugal living habits that help me get over some of the more tricky times. So what do I mean by frugality? I always think frugality is quite an ugly word. I feel like there's lots of negative connotations with the word frugality, and people just associate it with being really tight, being like a skinflint, somebody who is unwilling to part with the cash. To a degree, that is me, but also frugality is a way of making sure that you're getting the most bang for your buck. You're not unnecessary spending, you're mindful spending, and you are careful with every single penny. It is not a case of throwing money away left, right and centre, but nor is it a case of keeping my purse completely closed all the time, because nobody's going to enjoy that lifestyle. So I used to take several of these habits and use them and implement them in my everyday, and it meant that I was then able to finally get out of what I felt like was treading water and eventually work my way to the position that I'm in now, where I now work for myself. My children are thriving, and it feels like a whole other lifetime of those days when I lived with no heating on and I barely had enough to eat. Which kind of brings me to my first point, which is to consider what you want your life to look like. And it may not be what you want it to look like right this minute. It might be a long-term goal, and quite often, if you've watched this channel before, you'll see that I sit down and I set lots of different goals throughout the year, and then I've got goals for myself over 3 to 5 years, and then even some longer 10-year long goals. And these are things that I write down because I know realistically they're not always going to be achievable straight away, but they are things that I can strive towards. And because I've got that goal in mind, it's then when I can start to make these more intentional decisions, and I have a reason and I have a purpose and I have a why. So back in the day when I didn't have anything, I literally wanted more than anything else was just to get through a week. But I wanted to also be in a position where my daughter never felt like we were deprived. I knew how much we were struggling, but I wanted to put on a facade almost so that she didn't feel like she couldn't ask for things, or that she couldn't feel like she didn't belong, or she was a bit of an outsider. And that was really important to me. So I used to come up with different ways to make sure that we could still have great things, but without having to spend the cash. So my why and my reason was my daughter, and it's now both my children. And because I wanted them to be the focus, and I wanted them to feel like they still had things and they still experience great things, it was a way that perpetuated and motivated me to find other things and to stop from spending unnecessarily. I knew if I spent in one area, then I wouldn't be able to do something else for them, or if I overspent or didn't pay the debt or I didn't pay the bills, then something else was going to have to be missed out. So once you've got your why, your reason, your being in your mindset, whatever that might look like for you, then use that as a bit of a carrot, a bit of motivation for yourself to think, this is why I'm doing this lifestyle. This is what I'm working towards. I know it might not be an immediate solution, but ultimately, if I keep going in this right direction, I'm going to get there. And your why might be very different to mine. You might not have children, or you might be living in a different country, or you might be living somewhere else in a different part of the country that is either more expensive to live or not as expensive. And you'll have different things that are important to you, whether it's hobbies or experiences or family. Everyone's going to have a different thing. So just because your why doesn't look like mine doesn't mean that it's not important, and it can't not be the catalyst to get you to where we want to be. Going hand in hand with frugality is the second point, which is to be mindful of waste. I'm always looking for ways to spread my food, for example, and making sure I'm getting as much money as I possibly can. Every time I go shopping, I'm looking carefully to see, well, how much is it per 100 grams or 100 millilitres or kilogram, regardless of what I'm buying, and then also taking into account any offers or deals they got on. Sometimes, and I've found that more recently, some of the premium brands once they've got a deal on, is actually cheaper than, say, the supermarket brand. But it's a case of having to do that quick calculation, keeping your calculator to hand and working it out. And ultimately, it might feel like it's just pennies, but all the way along, you're making sure that these things are the right and the most cost-effective thing. And if you do it several times, then you're going to be getting most out of your money. But then also making sure that you utilize every single little bit that you buy. I am one of those that will cut my creams and makeups in half and making sure I'm scraping out the bottom. Doing the same with toothpaste to make sure you get every last little bit out of there, because if it's in there, then I don't want to waste it. Keeping a bit of a stock checklist on your cupboards, on your freezers, on your fridge, so you know exactly what's gone in. Right next to it, the date, so you know what date it's gone in, and maybe the date when it needs to be used by as well. By having something like this and it's there visually right in front of you, then you're going to be able to remember that you've got it in there, because it used to be a case of where I go into cupboards and freezers and think, I haven't remembered how long I put this in here for. Is it still okay to eat? Is it not? Does it need getting thrown out? But that's just quite wasteful. So by having that visual reminder in front of me all the time, I know I don't then need to go out and buy something else. I'm aware of what I've got in the freezer for food for a week, and it helps me to meal plan. So again, I'm making the most of everything that I've got in there. Similarly for clothes and things, most of my clothes, I will freely admit, have got some damage, or they've got holes, or they've got something that means that they are not perfect. But most of the time, I work from home. The only person that sees them or knows about them is myself, and it feels really wasteful to throw it out when I've got a really perfectly good jumper that is keeping me warm, and the only thing is that it's got a couple of holes in the cuffs or things like that. And similar for the jeans and leggings, I have got things that don't have holes in if I'm going out in public, but mostly if it's something that's still doing its job, then it seems really wasteful to throw it away. If something has gone past its complete ability to be worn, I quite often will repurpose it. So I might cut it up and use it for material for cloths, for window cleaning, or improvise. I've used in crafts as well with the children. You know, when you're looking through types that have got holes in, those are great things to use in crafts, and just get on Pinterest and you can find loads of things for them yourself. If there's ever an opportunity to get something cheaper or for free, I will always do it. I never want to spend more than I need to spend. And that might mean that I've got to do a little bit more research or a little bit more shopping around, but usually it's at a benefit and it usually saves me quite a lot of money. I've talked in the past about how I could get my hair done for free, and quite often going to colleges, you could get beauty treatments like massages, makeup and nails done for free, or at least at very discounted. I could get my hair done for free. I used to get it coloured for a very discounted cost as well, because people training, still learning how to do these things. They're always supervised, but making sure that you're still getting a great deal, you're still getting the outcome that you want, and you can do it for a fraction of the cost, but also you're helping somebody learn. Somebody's got to learn, they've got to start somewhere. Why not help them along that way, save yourself some cash and still get those great products as well? Go online, look for vouchers, look for deals, look for 2-for-1s, stock up where you can, or if you need to, if you can get a really good deal. Keep an eye out for those things. I would never go online, buy tickets for anywhere without first of all looking for a voucher code or even asking for voucher codes, because 9 times out of 10 there are deals to be had. And you know, I'm always going on about top cashback. I will always go through there as well, because you're going to get some money back. It's like getting a reduced price of anything that I want to purchase. Having done the research and I've realised there's no vouchers or deals to be had, if I still want that item, I will go ahead and buy it, but I'll make sure that I have exhausted all possible options to save some cash before I do that. Which lends itself quite nicely to my next point, which is being mindful of the spending. So I'll always look for deals for anything that I do want, but also I'm making sure it's something that I really do want, and it's not just an immediate purchase. I'll always consider what it is, always look out, make sure I've got the best deal, make sure it's not just because I'm bored or because I feel like I've got a bit of extra cash, and I want to make sure that my money is really being mindfully spent. So think carefully about whether you really need something or whether it's really a want, and if there is a want, that's fine, that can still be justifiable, but make sure it is done with mindfulness so you're fully aware of how much you're spending. It's one of the reasons that I do cash stuffing, because you physically have the cash and it makes it a lot easier to be more mindful when you're exchanging it over. It is trickier when you want to order things online, obviously, because you don't have that same thought process. But again, because of the way I set up my life and my finances, I do find it's a lot easier to be more mindful of every single penny that I spend. And because I'm writing it down, even if it isn't the physical cash, I'm still making a note of it. I'm putting it into my planner. I'm making sure I'm aware of every single penny that I am spending. And again, because it's at the forefront of my mind, I'm less likely to overspend. You might want to consider where all of these things lead into a minimal life. So quite often when I'm watching these kinds of videos online, they also will then recommend minimalism lifestyle videos, because in a way they do go kind of hand in hand. That's not to say my house is empty. It certainly is not empty. I quite often get things for free. People always know if they're getting rid of something, they'll ask me if I want it first. But in terms of minimalism, it's a case of not over buying on things that you might not necessarily need. So if I am seeing a really good deal on the table, for example, but I've already got one, I'm not just then going to go and buy it just because it's a really good deal, but I'm going to be aware of whether I really need one and not putting too many different things in the home. Doing the occasional declutter, getting rid of surplus of everything that you don't need. You can donate it. Consider doing the pan project, which I've got another video on that coming up really soon on this channel. Making sure that you're fully utilising every single thing in your home doesn't mean that you're being deprived. It just means that you're not overspending. Speaking of spending, make sure that when you do go out and you are spending, that it is done with all those things, those intentions, mindfulness, but make sure it's not an emotional spend. It's so easy to suddenly get paid and feel really happy because you've suddenly got money and then going out to spend it because you can, you've got it. Or when you're feeling sad or feeling down, to go out and spend some more money because it'll cheer you up. It's just that little bit of a boost. As somebody with ADHD, money spending and getting that kick from spending and that purchase used to be a massive vicious circle for myself, until I embrace this kind of lifestyle where I'm conscious of every single penny that I spend. So I'm no longer buying things with my heart. I now think about it in my brain first and then have that process. They always say don't go shopping on an empty stomach because you'll start to buy everything. And again, that's an emotion. Take yourself a shopping list and make sure you're just getting exactly what you need. Just grab a sandwich before you leave so it's not going to be the thing that you're thinking about as you're walking around putting things into your trolley. I already touched a little bit earlier on having like a stock list outside your cupboard, your fridges and your freezers, but then the same can be said for not just food items, but also other things in your cupboard. I know loads of people who will stock up on things like bathroom and cleaning products. Sometimes I might buy one or two of the same product if it's on a good deal and it's something that I use all the time, but I'm aware of how much I've got in my cupboards. I've got a bit of an inventory. If I'm running out of toothpaste, I need to get some. I don't have a surplus stock of several boxes of toothpaste or shampoos that I've bought and forgotten about. Stick it on the inside of a cupboard and then keep a note of it, and it's so useful. You'll be surprised how useful these things become and how much of a habit it is, and it stops you from overspending. Finally, the thing to know is what I said right at the beginning of this video is you might have a plan of what your long-term goal looks like, but it's important to remember that it is a long-term goal. You can make lots of small changes, but it might take quite a while to see a big impact. It took me literally years. 7 years is what it took me to get out of what I want to call my hell of life and financial situation. And it wasn't an easy slog, but along the way I learned lots of things and I came up with lots of different processes and thoughts and ideas of how to continue going forward. And each day was a tiny baby step. And at the time it felt like it was taking forever, but finally I'm on the other side of it. I'm finally financially free and I've never been happier. But you must know that it's not an instant overnight success, but by doing and making lots of little changes, you can see a massive impact. If you've enjoyed this video, I'd absolutely love if you go ahead and subscribe, give the video a thumbs up, like, comment, let me know your thoughts in the section down below, and I would love to have you as part of this community. Have yourself an amazing day and I'll see you really soon. Bye.